Hi, Michael Sankey here from Charles Darwin University, looking at some of the new trends for Australian higher education VET as we look towards 2023. But first, I would like to acknowledge all the First Nations peoples across the land on which we live and work and pay respect to elders past and present. So some discernible emerging trends that I'm seeing. So there's the rise of the skills economy within VET and higher education. Been in VET for a while, but rising in intensity in terms of higher education. Real possibilities for microcredentials to provide a new currency across both VET and higher education. The challenges of artificial intelligence, the learning tools, analytics, and the potential for cheating. I think there's some trends in terms of the new hybridization of learning opportunities, and particularly what's happening with the new rooms that we're developing. I suppose getting real about First Nations knowledges and diversity is a real challenge for many universities, and seeing some nice strides forward in that area. And of course, looking towards the work readiness of our graduates and how we account for things like that in our curriculum design. So the federal budget this year really put an emphasis on skills and training. And they did that by taking what was DESE, the Department of Education, Skills and Employment, and splitting them in two, giving VET or VET a particular skills training a particular focus, and giving higher education a particular focus as well. That's allowing some nice synergies to happen, new synergies that weren't being achieved through the existing structure. So we do see that the federal government is funding 480,000 new TAFE places for vocational educational places. We see $1 billion for the National Skills Agreement between 2023 and 2024. We're seeing about 20,000 additional university places worth $885 million, 10,000 new energy apprenticeships. Government's established New Jobs and Skills Australia. I'm having a meeting with them in the new year. That'll be interesting. So this means really a greater reliance on technology to conduct a lot of this, to record, to progress it, and to augment our skills-based education we currently see. This affects our learning platforms, our curriculum management systems, our student management systems in new ways. So let's look at some of those. So let's look at what we're doing with microcredentials. So there are two major reviews were conducted in 2021 around this. There was a Strengthening Skills expert review of Australian VET systems, and particularly in the way it would provide more flexible opportunities for training, for industry, and it recommended some considerations to further encourage these. There was also the review of the Australian Qualifications Framework that's underway, and the AQF recommended that the policy guidelines be developed to allow recognition of microcredentials for credit, and we're starting to see that now with the emergence of the new Microcreds platform and what the department has done with that, and UAC has done with that. These reports highlight that microcredentials, the government sees it as being able to modernise Australian training landscape. And so it's part of the broader work across both VET and higher education to provide a two-way synergy. So for quite some time, we've seen it's been VET to higher education, but through this process, we can see a two-way thing. So what we might be doing in higher education, it might also feed into VET and see more VET qualifications come for those who have already got some higher education qualifications. So the microcredentials pilot in higher education was mooted on 9th November 2022, and now the pilot has the documentation's gone out, and we're kind of considering what that means for institutions. In simple terms, there's about $100,000 per credential on offer for universities if they're linking that with industry partnerships. Okay, that of course does have implications for LMS, student management system, content management systems, things like that. So we're trying to deal with that at our university by making that possible within our systems. Some have already done so, but we'll continue to see that evolve in the sector. So just a couple of weeks ago, federal government, or UAC, released the new Microcredentials Seeker platform. So that's out there now for anybody to go and check out what micro-credentials are available for people. And you can do that at a cost. It takes you to the university website where those credentials are housed, and you can sign up for them. Next little challenge I'm seeing is in relation to AI and the learning tools, analytics and cheating and things like that. So our first generation AI applications relied heavily on the human production models, for harvesting and analysing data, deep learning as it were. But now these second generation AI tools are starting to harvest data from and creating its own models. So it's self-generating in a sense. And so it learns and improves itself over time from the huge amounts of information that is available through publishers, databases, through Google, etc. So this promises really to help us, and I mean helps us to generate and easily generate insights from large banks of information. Now that's available to us and available to our students. So we already seen tools in the market like Grammarly, which is a great tool, and we use it here at CDU to help our students simplify and to help their writing. And that's a tool that learns over time. Helps to compose bold, clear, mistake-free writing. Really handy for some students who struggle with their grammar and things. We see tools emerging in the platform like Feedback Fruits, where it's got automated feedback and AI-generated feedback that helps lecturers understand students' writing and students to understand their own writing as well. So these AI tools are starting to emerge within our different learning management systems and supported tools. And so these tools can help with referencing, can pick up if references are wrong and things like that. But of course, the big news, of course, from the last couple of months has been how students are using AI tools to cheat. And we're seeing story after story after story emerge in the media about this. So let's just think about it. Our essays, authentic assessment now. So, back in the good old days, we could buy an essay from Essay Mule for, around about $800 for a 200-page essay. Study by Newton in 2018, so we're now talking 4 years ago, found that about 15.7% of students admitted to paying someone else to write their assignments for them. Now, this is from a study, an article written by Sharples just a few months ago about automated essay writing. And so look that up, the reference for it's down there. And now, almost as an unintended consequence of generative transformers, that is these AI engines, such as GPT-3 and soon GPT-4, we're seeing that there's a real democratization of cheating in a sense. And so where it used to cost us $400 or $800 for an essay, if you subscribe to some of these services, it could be as low as $1, to create an essay or a short writing piece, in a few seconds, really. I mean, I've done it myself. It does it really quickly, and it does it pretty well. So these are challenges that we're facing this year and need to deal with. There are tools out there like Jasper, which are great, and marketing companies are already using these tools to create copy and things like that, to rework imagery and things. And of course, the OpenAI and the GPT-3 tools associated with that, creating some great outputs, which we want to be able to work with to help our students understand these things. So we have AI in all walks of life. This was this diagram from the World Economic Forum. But in terms of education, we see it in education skills and learning. We see it in innovation work within education. We see it in data science. We see it in the future of computing, all these things that are associated with it. However, AI doesn't always get it right. Now, here's the crunch for education. And this is the hook I think we have in terms of this. So here I did a bit of ego surfing and looked up Michael Sankey at CDU, and we see these images of me, but down the bottom there, we see some images of somebody else. And particularly, we see an image of our Prime Minister, Albanese. And it says there in the byline underneath, that's Michael Sankey, Professor Director, Learning Futures and Lead Education Architect. Well, that's the right title, but that's not me. And I have never put up a post with Anthony Albanese in it. So AI doesn't always get it right. And it won't always get it right for our students either. So if they're using these tools, there's no guarantee that what they're submitting is actually right. So let's think that there might be an opportunity there for us to help our students understand this and to actually tease those concepts out. So these guys are really, these SA Mills that are using AI like this. We block at our university, we block about 1,400 sites from academic fraud and cheating sites. Most of these are provided to us by TEXA, but we've got other means through Cordit, etc., to find other ways and other places that are doing this. It's one thing to say we need to change assessment to be more authentic, which we do, and I'm not saying we shouldn't do that, we absolutely should, but we need to be able to back that up in a consistent way. In a sense, that means dollars or proxy for dollars. Or do we have to rush it? Well, the urgency, I think, is actually there to make some changes fairly quickly. But to help us do that, we really need to make sure our teachers have that meta understanding around how they are now supposed to teach and assess. And to do that, if we think of our lecturers sitting in their room, they might have another friend lecturers sitting on either side, but generally they don't talk a lot about this stuff. They kind of deal with it as they learnt to do when they were a student. And they attend some PD sessions and things like that. So what we need are people like assessment mentors, those who have kind of really done some deep dives into assessment and can assist our lecturers with this. So we see these tools all over the place. I'm in Instagram. I'm a passionate photographer as well as an academic, and these people follow me on Instagram, and it's all about written assignments. Now, these are AI-generated leads. And they see the word university in my profile, and so they target me. And so here is Aussie assignments saying, PISLEMI, whatever that means, known if you need any type of assignment help, we're always ready to help you out in very genuine price. We are turned in certified and grant 100% plagiarism-free work. Well, as if I'm going to do that. But these guys are always in my face. And the students get it all the time through Instagram, through TikTok, all kinds of things. The amount of stuff going through TikTok at the moment in relation to AI-generated assistance and things like the students is astonishing. Anyway, and of course, then there are sites like this, like Course Hero, and which advertise themselves and Chegg to advertise themselves as being authentic places in which students get help. But in fact, they're actually very sophisticated cheating sites. And so contract cheating is very much on TEXA's agenda at the moment. We've seen lots of information come out of that, and they're very helpful to the university sector in relation to that and in being able to compile a lot of this work. And that's this Chegg place that I mentioned just before. Purport to be really authentic and to helping students, but underneath they're actually really selling on assessments and things like that. So, for example, at our university, and these sites are freely available to people, of course. In March this year, March 2022, we had 7,533 students, or no, I won't say students, 7,533 attempts to get to cheating sites from within our university network. That's just from within our network. So that's not 7,533 students, that's attempts at getting to these sites. And in October last year, almost 10,000 attempts to get to cheating sites from within our network. That's an astonishing figure. Now, of course, they can get to these networks from their home computers, or if they've got a VPN, they can easily get to these sites anytime they want to. I did a kind of analysis of some of a graduate certificate in learning and teaching from another place, and looked at what could be cheated very easily, and could students pass this graduate certificate fairly easily using AI and cheating tools. And so I found that essays and quizzes, so we know that essays and quizzes and things like that are really easy to cheat in nowadays. So we see that essays, which make up at least 60% of most of these units, and also reports, which are fairly easy to generate as well, you know, that's 60% of the marks minimum that a student can get through AI-generated materials. So they could pass a course really without having to lift a finger, in a sense, other than pay for an AI-generated output. Then we have things that are a bit more authentic, like setting up a portfolio, blog posts, even though now using GPT-3, blog posts are really easy to create. But posts, teaching plans, presentations, they're a little bit harder to cheat in. So I could pass this course quite easily without having to do a whole lot of study. That's a bit worrying, isn't it? Anyway, I do write about this a little bit in a recent article I wrote for the Journal of University Teaching and Learning Practice. But essentially what I'm suggesting is we're using different forms of assessment, not quizzes all the time, not essays all the time, not exams all the time, but we should be using more of the human voice. We should be using more images that we get students to create, more collaboration, more peer review work, students peer reviewing each other, more generating posters and infographics, e-portfolios and reflections, and more work-integrated learning are things that are seen as more authentic forms of assessment. Next little thing I'd look to look at is just the true hybridization of learning opportunities. Now, we've been banging away at hybridized learning for 20 plus years. And I was doing this back at the University of Southern Queensland back in 2001, when we launched hybrid learning back in 2001. And so that's 21 years ago, we've been talking about hybridized learning. Of course, that was a distance education, predominantly a distance education institution. And so this is not a new concept, but what we've seen now, we're starting to see new room configurations emerge. So the way we're designing our teaching spaces is actually considering technology first, not as an afterthought. And so they're being primarily linked to our online tools, as opposed to what has been the case in the past, retrofitting our rooms with technology. It's a really significant shift we're seeing in the new generation learning spaces. And clearly this does align with new and different business models for our providers, and the types of markets we can reach, and the types of hybridized markets we can reach, where students online and offline are participating in the same learning events. So the other thing that we're really concentrating at our university in over the next year is getting real about First Nations knowledges and diversity. Now, of course, we've been doing this for a long time at Charles Darwin University because we're in the Northern Territory, very high percentage of Indigenous students, but we've still got a long way to go. And most universities in Australia have got a long way to go. So we say in our graduate attributes that students will be information literate, imaginative and enduring innovators, culturally responsive, impactful and influential leaders, ethically and socially just, and creative and courageous communicators. But it's this one we're really concentrating on here. Culturally responsive in their engagement with First Nations communities and issues. Fundamental that we're mapping this into our curriculum. So each of our graduate attributes are mapped to assessment items, learning outcomes and assessment items. Fundamental that we get this into our graduate attributes, which we have. And this, of course, is based off our strategic plan and the principles we have in our strategic plan, which are around honouring Australians' First Nations knowledges and cultures. And we see these embedded and celebrated within our curriculum. Not just embedded, but celebrated within our curriculum as we aspire to see our First Nations people prosper and for the betterment of all Australians. So what does this mean for our systems? So it means that we really need to consider how we manage our curriculum. That means curriculum management systems, it means curriculum design, it means responsive mobile-friendly learning teaching systems for those students who do not have great access, and particularly in the Northern Territory, there are populations of people, small though they be, but who do not have ready access to good technology. They have mobile phones with dodgy mobile access, but they can access, but it is pretty flaky. It's about digital fluency training, not just for our students, but for our staff, because technologies are changing all the time. It means in context help in language, not just English, but also our Indigenous languages as well. And it means community mentoring and how we create mentors within these communities, our learning communities that actually can work with our students around this. The other trend, I suppose, is what's happening with the work readiness of our graduates, and particularly since the federal government brought out its JRG, the Job Ready Graduates legislation, which is about improving education of students, about improving accountability for the providers and opportunities for more regional Australians. So this is, in our case, quite fundamental, and making sure that what we have, our students are authentic students and not ghost students. So there are these things called ghost students, believe it or not, that enroll in courses to make sure that they keep their visa alive and things like that. So, and we have students who are enrolled, they get charged and don't get their money back if they unenroll after census date, and it takes ages to get their money back. So governments and the national debt, of course, builds because students accrue this debt but couldn't be bothered paying it back because they never get a job that's worth the money that the threshold for paying back their money. So lots of issues there that the government is really trying to get on top with at the moment, and we have to work with the government in relation to that. And working that and through our systems in terms of job-ready graduates, in terms of our students being job-ready, means we're going to be using tools that they use in the workplace. So things like Microsoft Teams to boost our authentic learning environments and our collaborative learning environments. These things are called productivity tools, and they're called that for a reason because they help businesses be productive and to react and interact in new and more contemporary ways. Through the uses of text messages and online use, mobile use and things like that. Things like Slack. If you don't use Teams, you're most likely using Slack in a business. There are things like Miros and things like that, which is all about collaborative. We're seeing lots of this use within large companies within Australia and other countries, of course. So tools like this are really important, and that we are actually considering the use of what our companies are doing and making sure we're using these tools as we progress learning and teaching. So fun times ahead as we integrate into that new skills economy the government is so intent on providing, and I think it's a good thing. How we might fully participate in microcredentials, how we might embrace AI and what that means for assessment. Not running away from it, but we can't bury our head in the sand. It's there and it's going to continue to evolve. How we might fully hybridize our learning opportunities, how we might get real about our First Nations knowledges and the diversity that comes with that for us, and also how to create our work-ready graduates. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this little presentation.